All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Field Pass podcast. I'm back. I've made my valiant return. I'm a married man now. Over in Thailand watching the Cleveland Browns perform in a quality on which I will not discuss as of right now. On a porch overlooking the beach to calm my stress. And fortunately, I came back a changed man. My girlfriend, my now wife, was bit by a potentially rabid cat. So now we're four shots deep, going through the process of fixing that, but she's fine. Um, what we're here to talk about today is the not so eventful in terms of competition week in the NFL. But as Braden and I were discussing prior the recording, we really found out who stinks this week. Um, and we'll go further into that here in just a moment. But Brayton, you have anything to say before we begin?
Mm, no, not really. I mean, yeah, we found out there's a couple of stinkers, but I mean, no one's like proved themselves the alpha dog yet in the league. I mean, we're only 3 weeks in. We'll find that out
Yeah. Well, how
more
about you
this
take
is.
us into our first top five moment of the day, or top five game, I guess, of the day, since we don't really have any nuggets of gold within this week.
All right. This probably isn't a shock that this is on this list, but the 70-20 score of the Dolphins Broncos, and I mean, I kind of talked about this with Andy, how it looks like that defense had no chemistry in the second half of the Commanders. Really, the whole team didn't. And man, the Miami ran all over them. I mean, they were up without their top two offensive players, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and Jalen Waddle didn't play. I mean, Mostert had 4 touchdowns. A-Chain had like 200 yards and a couple. Like, I mean, it was like they were playing like a college team or something. Like that didn't look like an NFL team out on that field. I mean, Broncos are just. I mean, Sean Payton was talking all this smack at the beginning of the year with Hackett and everything, and he's just gone out and done nothing except get destroyed pretty much. I mean, we found out that the Broncos, at least their defense, everyone thought their defense was going to be good again. This just hasn't proved to be the case. So, yeah, that's pretty much got on that. Dolphins just, I mean, they just murdered the Broncos.
Yeah, if you're a fan in Denver, you're really stung from last season. I'm trying to put myself in the frame of mind of a person who had Hackett come in. He's doing things like I think it was like Backstreet Boys songs, and that was like the motivation for the team. You just have this like era of corniness accompanied by Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson coming in as well. I mean, who keep in mind is a very has a very long history of accolades within the NFL, who was starting to show a little bit of rust prior to his departure from Seattle. So you were expecting there'd be maybe a little bit of a step back here in Denver, but keep in mind the same thing was said about Peyton Manning during his return, or not his return from his move to Denver. Maybe you're hoping for that same sort of resurgence. But with Sean Payton coming back into the scheme of things, you're really going in the complete opposite direction of the corniness. You're experiencing a vetted NFL coach who really brings a different air of kind of like a kind of like not that you're necessarily afraid of Sean Payton, but he definitely carries a certain demeanor that has at least your hope would kind of bring the Broncos into a an era of like professionalism, just or not professionalism, but like just a competency that was missing out of the entirety of last season. And this week proved that relatively nothing has changed. And if anything, we have seen regressions in the Broncos defense. I mean, when you're looking at players like Pat Surtain, who was lauded as almost a Sauce Gardner, like not like a Sauce Gardner comp, and almost like a sleeper pick for better than Sauce Gardner. When you're seeing him underperform in an offense that, or sorry, in a defense that was really supposed to be the last hope for this team, it's not a great place to be in. So there's not much more to say other than what Sean Payton said, and is that it's embarrassing, and he nearly took the head off of the reporter who asked that question as to like how embarrassing really is this. Um, so it's a disappointing start to the season for the Broncos. If you're in your Denver, you're hoping that they can get it together and maybe make a push further down the road. But not encouraging. It also doesn't help that you are coming across the Miami Dolphins, who, in similar to last season, are on a war path with Tua performing way over his projections. Um, I guess by some of his detractors. Um, this offense is off the rails right now in the best way possible. You see Mostert, who you wouldn't necessarily put within the upper echelon of running backs in the league, almost lighting the city of Denver on fire, um, alongside some of the other running backs in that room.
Yeah, and
Um,
Jeff Wilson didn't even
yeah,
play, and
right.
he's probably, I mean, I would assume he's second string. Maybe
Well,
HN
yeah.
has passed him, but I mean, still, I mean, I
I mean,
probably
Jeff
could have
Wilson
ran all
isn't a
over that
scrub.
defense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, it's almost it's you used the word, I think, last week, is that they are just completely disjointed and they lack chemistry. And normally, like, that's just something that we say about a team if we don't really know or give a reason as to why they stink. But it genuinely looks like they don't have the capacity to play alongside each other. So there's not much more to say about them other than that it's very embarrassing.
Yeah.
That could lead us to our next top five moment. And that can be found in the Colts Ravens game, which was actually a really interesting and intriguing game. Af during the during the discussion about around this, and I'm surprised that there really hasn't been that much discussions about this game. Most of it has been like concentrated around this Dolphins Broncos blowout. Um, but it was a really intriguing, interesting game, and I was watching like the video on demand of the game today. And one thing that I don't think we're talking about is how is a like a Matt Gay masterclass. Like it was it like three
He shot,
plus
if he had,
50 field goals.
it went 5 for 5. I know that.
Yeah. So it's pretty great. And then also like to see Justin Tucker miss the potentially game-winning field goal on top, which would then
That's
lead to an overtime.
uncharacteristic of him.
It
Like he
is
need,
uncharacteristic, but give Matt Gay his flowers. I had him in fantasy last season and he won me literally a couple of games. So Matt Gay, if you're listening to this, I hope you understand the respect that we're putting on your name today. Um, but yeah, overall the Colts Ravens games, it was nice to see Gardner Minshew lead a kind of a beat up Colts team against this AFC North um, rival of ours. But I think he did a pretty good job. Brandon, if you want to get into it, I would love to see what you think.
yeah, what, um, yeah, kind of, this game I thought the Ravens would win, but one thing I'd like to point out is they did have 7 starters out. I mean, that's a factor, yes, but I mean, you still got to give credit to the Colts. They went into Baltimore without their starting QB. They did this with a backup and came in and won in overtime. So I mean, yeah, Matt Gay. I mean, he didn't miss. He was on the money. He
No,
pretty much single-handedly won them that game. So credit to him. And yeah, just I mean, 'cause I don't even think Odell played. So I
no, he
mean,
didn't.
yeah, like there's just he's like that definitely hurt the Ravens, and yeah, and that hurt them kicking in this week. And hopefully they'll be back next week, but I'm not really sure like how bad all the injuries are. I know Dobbins is obviously out, but other than that,
Yeah, that room looked okay. And like a note on the Ravens running back room, like they've always, as of recently, the Ravens organization has been sort of rotating in these running backs. You have Melvin Gordon in there now, who alongside Gus Edwards really did an okay job at moving it along. I would say that it was once the Gus Edwards impact wasn't really seen. And one of the things I wanted to note about was there was actually some really interesting old school kind of just pounded out football going on when they brought Ricard into the game alongside Melvin Gordon. And Ricard was throwing up blocks and giving Melvin Gordon a whole lot of space. to get like a nearly an extra 3 or 4 yards on nearly every rush attempt that he was in and received the ball for in that particular play. And that led to the touchdown that would set up the first original Lamar Jackson rushing touchdown. So it was interesting to see like how that came along because I really enjoyed getting to see some of Ricard come in and really open up the run game. Um, but yeah, Lamar looks great. Lamar is really silencing his haters when it comes to being able to throw the ball. He's just zipping it really anywhere he wants on the field. I mean, there weren't that many deep passes or anything like that that you could. And to be fair, the Ravens, other than Zay Flowers, don't have a particularly star-studded um, offense in terms of receivers, at least right now with Odell being out. But Zay Flowers' impact was definitely seen. I mean, he had good separation on a couple of receptions. He was able to get a good amount of yards after contact. One thing about the Colts um, that I noted is first the offensive line looks miserable. Like it actually looks really bad. At least it did under Minshew, and maybe no one noticed this under Richardson because he's
Yeah, he
the
could just
playmaking
move when.
capabilities. Yeah, but with Gardner, who's a little bit more prone to sitting in the pocket, he was getting swallowed alive, especially around the edge. Um, they were getting in and they basically had free reign at tackling him whenever he wanted. And then also there was a lot. I felt like there was a lot missing. Um, I mean, Zach Moss did a great job. He's bouncing off of linebackers and linemen in a way that gives him a lot of space and allows for him to create plays. And when you would originally think that they would have been broken down. Um, but I actually think that a whole lot is missing in Jonathan Taylor's absence is being not that it's not being spoken about enough, but it definitely was witnessable. Kind of on those short passes, Zach Moss and the other guys in that running back room really weren't able to create the plays that Jonathan Taylor really would be able to. So if I'm the Colts, I would look at last week, um, understand that Zach Moss is a pretty formidable running back if all you want to do is just run it down the middle or but if you really want to play like the Colts have been playing, which is those short, quick passes, especially if you're anticipating that Gardner's going to be in, and if you don't take care of Richardson, um, Jonathan Taylor is going to be an integral part of this offense, and you should get him back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean the real question is if they do. I mean, he obviously has beef with the front office. So I mean, and they're willing to pay like for Dolphins over like real or whatever the owner bought over Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, I mean, it's this Colts team is just interesting because I mean, I don't, I still don't know how good they are. I really don't. Like, I mean, we talked about this at the top. They're 2-1 now. I mean, they beat a Texans team, which I mean, we don't really know about them either. And then they beat a injury Ravens, but I mean, give credit to them. They got it done. I mean, they're 2-1 moving on. I'm just interested to see how this season goes for them because I thought they would not, especially with JT, they'd be hurting. But I mean, they really haven't. It looks like I mean they haven't missed them that much, and then I mean that may lead them to not signing him. If I mean the front office may think that since we're already winning. I don't know. That's just an interesting situation. I think we gotta look
I
on.
think that
I
would
think
be a
also.
mistake. Yeah, I think that would be a mistake,
Oh, 100% would.
But Moss is doing a great job with what he's been showing. I mean, it's not like he was some scrub before. I mean, with the Bills,
No.
he with Singletary, he not that he was splitting it completely, but he was taking up a non-negligible amount of carries. Um, so I'm glad that he's at least getting a little bit of a
Yeah.
stage to show what he has available.
Then moving on to our third game is one that was very surprising to me. I thought this game wouldn't be close, and that's the Cowboy Cardinals. I mean, Cowboys have looked absolutely dominant in these first two games. But it was against the Giants and the Jets, and those teams both aren't that good right now, as at least they haven't shown. And then they come out to Arizona and just, I mean, they never got it going. I mean, it was just like it just felt like I don't know what like they didn't take preparations here Seriously, I mean, this Cardinals team has been really surprising to me because they've played 3 competitive games. And I mean, I thought they would be one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, they've fought every game, so you can't even really call them that right now because I mean, they lost to one possession game to the Giants, I believe one possession to Commanders, and then went out and beat the Cowboys. Who, I mean, they obviously missed Trayvon Diggs, which I mean, there's probably something about that from earlier in the week and him tearing his ACL. But I mean, Joshua Dobbs is getting done. I mean, I thought they would be one of the worst offenses in the league. I didn't really trust Joshua Dobbs. I mean, he really hadn't proven much. I mean, but he's been serviceable for him until Kyler comes back, and that's been really surprising. I mean, give credit to them. They're 1-2, and they're moving forward this week.
Yeah, I was really happy that Dobbs was traded from Cleveland. I mean, obviously I'm preferential to DTR just because of what he was able to show in the preseason, but I also had a desire to see Dobbs get the starting job in a just anywhere. Really, I was a little bit disappointed because the Cardinals I would predicted to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I'm still anticipating that they will be one of the worst teams in the NFL. But particularly, what a particularly large concern was that of the offensive line, especially when I saw some of the people composing it, especially Froholt, who stood in um, to account for some injuries in Cleveland last season, and I was particularly concerned having seen what he had put together, and it actually looked okay. During this, theoretically, this is the game in which the cracks should have been exposed the most.
Yeah,
Um,
because I mean, Micah Parsons, and that's all you need to say in itself in a defensive line. You don't need 3 other people
yeah,
rushing the quarterback.
like if you can, here's the thing: Saquon Barkley, at least at first glance, should be more of a threat than really like the entire Cardinals offense. Like that, he is almost held at a higher esteem than in terms of playmaking ability than the entire Cardinals offense, despite there being a pretty decent amount of weapons on there with like Rondale Moore and Hollywood Brown and James Conner, who we also should not be sleeping on. Like Saquon Barkley is given more respect in that regard than the entire team or that entire side of the ball in Arizona. Um, but the Cowboys stuffed him up. And then in this case, they not that they like were completely dominant over the Cowboys, but they were able to bring out a win. And like you said, Braden, it almost feels like this is just something that they didn't prepare for or they didn't anticipate would be like a roadblock. And I think that the Trayvon Diggs injury does have a I'm as I look at the NFL more and more, I'm starting to realize that injuries to a team, they really can hurt morale and they can be like this mental roadblock that you really can't get over. And sometimes it takes a week to shake you and realize that hey, we got to move past this mentally and understand that um, we still have a couple games left to play. Um, Other than that, there's not much to say other than I'm happy that Dobbs is getting his flowers and that he's able to start in a place that seems to be taking good care of him. Other than the fact that he couldn't get his jersey from the team
Yeah, I was
shop,
about to
that
mention
was a
that.
bummer. Yeah, so I mean that really sucks, and I hope I'm sure that one of the interns in Arizona was running around with their head on their hands on their heads, like, oh my gosh, we don't have our starting quarterback's jersey in the store. So hopefully he's able to get
Yeah,
that for
that's
his
that.
family here
I
soon.
can guarantee that's already fixed,
Yeah,
especially since it went viral.
yeah.
So
All right, so here's possibly the most depressing game of the week. Well, no, I mean we already talked about that one, but one of the I guess the
who's
no good very bad no good very bad season for the Bears. Um, with with uh with Taylor Swift attending the Chiefs game, you just saw a good old
yeah,
beatdown.
this was the Bears versus Taylor Swift. That was
Well, this was like the homecoming. This is like essentially like the homecoming game where
yeah.
like you rig not that you rig it, but like you plan on hope like you're hoping to inspire the crowd. The the Chiefs are coming off like a loss at the start of the season. They recently won. So now they're like, okay, let's reassert ourselves as dominant members of this league. And then coincidentally, let's also bring in Taylor Swift, who is this like Madonna-esque figure. Or not Queen Diana-esque figure for a lot of fans of the NFL, but also members of the general public. And let's just beat down the Bears, and that is exactly what happened, to no one's surprise.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, I'm just gonna say he's looked awful, man. He really hasn't got anything together this year. I mean, I I pointed out last week that I didn't like I was seeing in interviews like how he was saying I don't know, like I don't call the plays like on losing like on the interceptions and stuff. It's just like he just really hasn't impressed me, especially to consider the fact they had the number one pick and they could have got another QB in Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, or Richardson, and they made a really good trade to Carolina and got DJ Moore and everything, and they're not using DJ Moore right at all. I mean, saw like when they have him mic'd up, and a Buccaneers player said to DJ Moore, "They're not using you right at all," and he said, "I know." Like this is just like it's it's getting sad. I mean, because I don't know what's going on with this Bear offense. It may just be coaching or it may just be suck. And was it the DC that resigned
It
or was
was
it?
the DC. Yeah, there's a whole lot of legal drama around that as well.
Yeah, that doesn't help either. If
No.
they're losing the person that designs and calls the defense, and I mean, I'm not saying it would have been any better against the Chiefs, but it definitely would have helped that he was there and he just resigned out of the blue. So I mean, that could play into a factor. But I mean, Chiefs looked. I mean, they looked how they should have against the Bears. Because I mean, Bears is another one of these 0-3 teams, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, we'll see how they bounce back this week. But I mean,
Yeah, I think they will actually be the worst team in the league,
yeah,
unfortunately.
they
Like
the
I
Cardinals look a lot better than they are. Because at least the Cardinals are making these games competitive.
Yeah, they've been beat down over and over again in this week 3. And if you're a Bear, if you're in Chicago, your hair should have gone or is already gray, I'm assuming. Um, but that's the thing. It's like DC's gone, so you're already really upset about having lost like an integral figure for really one of the more important sides of the ball for the Bears this season. Um, because I mean, ideally, Justin Fields was showing growth. Like this should have already been figured out because you have DJ Moore and because you're hoping that Justin Fields continues on the gains that he made in his year in his former year. The defense should be something that you are a little bit more concerned about. But I saw that when I was watching the Chiefs game, they actually had some like a decent amount of playmakers that were helping to kind of like erode at the power that is the Chiefs offense. Now we have seen like this Chiefs offense not fulfill like live up to the expectations that they really should have because of like the dynasty aspect of their current roster. Um, but it seemed like that the Chiefs defense, at least in the beginning of the game, had a capacity to at least hold them to like a punt and then chase down Mahomes and at least get some pressure on him. So if you told me that this team had lost their DC that week, I wouldn't really believe you, just because I mean losing a DC midseason is pretty crazy, and they weren't like falling apart like the Broncos defenses were. I'm sure the Bears fans will disagree with me, but I saw at least a couple plays where I'm like, they seem to understand that what's going on. But it's just been a really bad week for the Bears and the season so far. I mean, you had somebody who snuck in to the Bears facility and stole what was it, $100,000 worth of merchandise or something
Something
like
like
that. Like that is crazy that you're that
the whole franchise
we're
is just
allowing
in
this to happen. It's
shambles.
just like falling apart. And that's the thing about Justin Fields. Like when you mentioned how you see he's like depressed. Like you can see he's not happy, and he's there's like a little hint of like criticism towards coaching. And now he would later go on to clarify that, like, and accept responsibility. But Brandon, I don't know if any of these quarterbacks that we've seen, especially Bryce Young, who, I mean, I'm sure he is going to show the flashes that he showed at Alabama eventually. But like even CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, I don't even know if they would thrive in an environment like this. Now, Justin Fields has definitely has criticism that you can make against him, but I can't even really blame him for getting upset with the situation that he's in because there are so many other circumstances in which I think he would be doing better.
Yeah,
Now, you ideally would like to see like a Kirk Cousins, like I could have placed the ball in a better spot for Justin Jefferson and like some of that accountability, but like I do not blame him whatsoever for feeling the way he feels.
yeah. I mean, it's just tough. I mean, we do have remember they did play the Chiefs, so I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see how I mean, they got a variable winning game coming up, which we'll talk about later, but I mean, yeah, yeah, we'll just see with the Bears. They're a work in progress for sure.
hmm All right. And so did you want to tackle Bengals Rams? I know that's your team, so you might want. I figured I'll let you get the
Yeah,
first word off.
I mean, I didn't think Joey B would play. I'm just gonna start off with that. I thought he should take off a week, and I mean, you could kind of see he wasn't really the same. He misfired some throws, but I mean, I think this is a good start for the Bengals to go in the direction they were last year. They got to win. That's all they really needed. They got that confidence booster. And I mean, the first half they were kind of shaking offense, but the second half they may have not put them a bunch of points on the board, but they were at least moving the ball, right? I mean, what it was either 6-6 or 6-9. No, it was nine or shoot. I don't know. I forget if we were losing at half,
I
but
believe it was tied at the half.
yeah, it was either 6-6 or 9-9, something
I
like
think it was
that.
6-6.
I don't really remember, but and then yeah, then we made it 13-9 and scored the touchdown. But it's just like in our defense has through for most part, other than Ravens where they looked a little shaky, but I mean the Ravens offense has looked decent other than last week. Um, they made stops to keep the offense in the game. It was like, and then once the offense started picking up, they were able to move the ball, possess time, which was a key part. I mean, they only scored one touchdown. Evan McPherson was 4 for 5, like 1 or 2 over 50, and he played as well as he could. I mean, he obviously could have made the other field goal, but it was like a 55 yard or something like that. And those are hard kicks, even though they seem to be normal now. But I mean, I think this is a good start to like start at the bottom and build their way up. I think they can only get better from here, especially once Burrow gets this whole calf situation, because it was hopefully sooner than later. And I mean, yeah, so, and Jamar Chase and T Higgins did the thing. So I mean, there's a really I was impressed of how well they played with still Burrow not really playing that like he's not even practicing really that much. He only practiced think Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday if they had practice. I don't know their schedule, but it was just I was impressed of how well they played considering the situation they are in. I'll say that.
Yeah, I agree that there was a little bit of like in terms of morale, if you were to fall to 0 and 3, like that would be something that pundits would definitely be picking up, and I'm sure the team would know about it. People would be getting upset. Um, I don't think the decision to start Burrow was the right one though. Like and like I personally think that people have kind of forgotten that the Rams are still relatively, I guess, in my opinion, they're a relatively strong team, especially with Stafford being back and
Yeah.
some of their rookies showing out with like Kyron Williams taking over for Cam Akers and Puka Nacua obviously doing his work. He has really shown out as the most prolific wide receiver rookie in this season.
And
Um,
sorry,
no, go ahead.
kind of adding on to that, then I'll let you go ahead. People are forgetting they haven't had Cooper Cup,
Yeah,
and their offense has looked well. It's just it was kind of weird because Matt Stafford, it felt like he was hurt all of last year. I know he played the first couple,
yeah,
but that was so long ago. So everyone forgot. The Rams just fell off the radar because of how bad they came without him. And I
yeah, and
think,
I agree. I think people just kind of like haven't realized yet that Matt Stafford is still alive and breathing and is the lead quarterback for an NFL team
yeah,
who also led them to a Super Bowl. So I like it's not like the Rams are this crazy powerhouse that you should like fear like you would the Chiefs, but I mean you still have Aaron Donald on the other side of the ball. So it's like we really want to put Joe Burrow out, who has a very serious apparently calf injury that I think that they understand the severity of, but they're just kind of like
I think it's
they
getting better though. He did re-aggravate it, but I think it's like the progression was enough for him to be able to play. I don't think if it was getting worse, they wouldn't have let him. Because I mean,
I mean obviously yeah.
he was cleared. Like it's not like he just said, "Oh, I'm playing." He was cleared to play. I mean, it may not have been the smart decision, but it ended up working out. So that's all that matters.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean it ended up working out. Obviously it's a little upsetting that like it had to be against Aaron Donald, but fortunately he didn't. Actually, the Bengals defense seemed to be a lot more dominant the than the Rams in that moment, with Hendrickson really making his impact known. Um,
I mean, the Bengals had like 6 or 7 sacks. Logan Wilson had 2 picks.
yeah,
One thing I do want to point out, sorry to kind of cut you
no,
off,
go ahead.
but Dax Hill has looked amazing. He's been, I mean, he had the interception against the Browns. He was really, I mean, he's really one of the few DBs that's been consistent all year. I mean, he had that big like clothesline over Matt Stafford, but like he's really impressed me on the defensive end. He's kind of like we people are forgetting that the Bengals lost Jesse Bates and Von Bell. They lost Eli Apple, and he's kind of like helping fill that hole a little bit. So I just encourage
Right,
everyone to keep an eye on him because I mean he's improved.
always good to see development.
Yeah, and
All
then
right, so you ready to head over to
yeah,
this next week's predictions?
yeah, and I mean we got a good Thursday night football game, I believe. To go to the rivalry NFC North Lions Packers. I mean this gets heated every year. I mean they don't like each other. I mean and but I bought into the Lions hype kind of at the beginning of the year. I didn't think they were going to beat Kansas City, and they went out and did that. They had a little hiccup against the Seahawks, but they bounced back well against the Falcons. And I mean, Packers, I still don't really know. 'Cause they were down. They were down 17-0. Derek got hurt. Carr got hurt, and then everything changed. So I mean, they could easily be 1-2 right now. I think I got the Lions win this one just because I trust them more with Goff has improved a lot since he's been in Detroit. They still got Jahmyr Gibbs, who hasn't really like people are freaking out because fantasy wise he hasn't played well, but he'll get there eventually. And then they got St. Brown and all those other receivers, and Sam Laporta has emerged himself as a rookie tight end that's been impressive. So I like what I'm seeing out of Detroit, and I think they just get it done this week on Thursday.
Yeah, I also think that the Lions are going to win this one out. Um, Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously you have him with Montgomery getting hurt. Initially, you would kind of assume that he would like step into that lead back role in a way that like can really show up in a dominant way, but he hasn't just yet. And I don't think that anyone should be freaking out just yet. I think he's a talent that the Lions obviously felt comfortable reaching down to grab um really early in the draft. So I think that they see something in him and that they're going to eventually get him fully integrated into this offense. Um, like I said, I obviously picked the Lions to win, but I would also I was gone before I could cash in on my Jordan Love praise before the season started. He has looked good. He has looked
He
really good
has,
in an offense that has been missing some of their most important weapons.
yeah. I
Now,
mean,
Aaron Jones was out last week. You also had
yeah,
Christian Watson who was out last week. So that's two receiving targets. And then it's Dobbs has also been kind of like in and out,
yeah.
if I am remembering
The whole
correctly. So
Packers
yeah.
Packers are kind of like the Ravens, and they're both just hurt,
Hmm.
and they've been competitive. It's a quick turnaround from Sunday, so who knows? the people that sat out may be able to get a chance to pop back in on Thursday night. But I mean, I even with those people healthy, I just still think the Lions. I'm not sure about you, but yeah, like I kind of forgot about that the Packers are kind of missing a lot of key pieces in that offense.
Yeah, and it is nice to see them at least with those injuries taken into account, they can still perform though. In this recent Saints game over the past week, like you were able to see pretty good game management from the Packers coaching and good execution from both sides of the ball on the Packers like actual team. So you can't write them off. You can't say that the Packers are done. Jordan Love has shown that sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a little bit of time really does help and it does make an impact. So I hope for their sake, once Watson makes a return, who seemed to be like their wide receiver of the future, out breakout in that last season. I hope that they're able to move on to new heights. Um, you ready to move on to Falcons Jags?
Yeah.
So I I think that after I'm not going to freak out too much about the Jags loss to the Texans last week. CJ's playing really well. He has had so far no issues with throwing interceptions. He's not thrown one yet. Granted, we've only been on 3 weeks, but his accuracy is something to applaud as well. And that's something that people have been kind of advertising as main his main draw, or not his main draw, is his main, I guess, attractive piece. Um, now he's honestly looking better than every other rookie quarterback. We haven't seen what Anthony Richardson has been able to fully do because of injuries, but he's looked good. Bryce Young, I still have stock in it. I still believe that he's going to be really decent. We just haven't really been able to see him move. And the passing offense just in general has looked like really abysmal in Carolina. So I think it's a bit of a combination of that the Texans kind of just have the Jags number. Um, and they do really find a way to win nearly every time the Jags play them in recent history. Um, or at least make it competitive. Um, and CJ's doing good. Now, that leads us to this week. I think the Jaguars do get together. I think that with the Falcons, um, I'm not going to say that they don't know how to use their star players because like they are integrating Kyle Pitts into the offense kinda, and they are using Bijan, although it is kind of tempered by Algier getting reps. Um, but I do think the Jags, this is a get right week. We saw the strength really of them in the earlier weeks then of the season. And I think this is just a get back week. I think the defense does a lot better than they did against the Texans. And that getting pressure on Ritter will really force him to make some decisions that I think the Jags will be able to punish them for. Um, but really, this is just a get back week for the Jaguars. And I think that I trust their coaching and I trust Trevor Lawrence to kind of get it together after a pretty bad showing last week.
Yeah, I mean, before I start, I mean these are the London Jaguars at this point. They feels like the last 5 years they've played in London. Um, but yeah, Falcons, Jaguars, Falcons. I mean, I s- I'm not still so Desmond Ridder. I don't know. I think it's just it's I don't know. I mean, I don't even I don't really remember how or what the score was for the Lions game, but I mean, he's had good moments,
It's
he's had bad.
6-20.
Yeah, he's had good and he's had bad. So I'm not really sure. This Jaguars, I agree with you. I think they'll fix their issues. I mean, they've had like two kind of below what you expect offensive performances with all the weapons they have. So I think they'll bounce back this week. I think it'll be close. I think the Falcons will be able to stay in it a little bit, especially if the offense struggles again. The offense needs to get going, and once they see that, they'll do well. I think the Jaguars win this one. And next up, starting with 1 o'clock, we got Rams Colts. The big thing that is if Anthony Richardson plays, it didn't really matter last week. With because I'm pretty sure it's his concussion is what it is. Um, Gardner Minshew want to get it done. I think Anthony Richardson plays this week, and I think it shocks people. I think the Colts get it done. I think they get it done versus the Rams. I still think Matt Stafford and that offense is good, but I mean, this defense has looked shaky at times. I mean, they lost Jalen Ramsey, they lost other pieces. They still have Aaron Donald, who's the best in slash D tackle slash just all around lineman in the league. So that's something to look out for. But I just think the Colts can get it done, especially if Anthony Richardson plays, because he's brought another thing to that offense with his legs, and he's been looked impressive from when he has played. So I think if he's back, the Colts win this one.
I actually think the Rams get this one done. Um, I think Richardson will play. I mean, today he returned to practice, so it's a good sign that he's entering like the last phases um of evaluating this concussion. Um, so I'm even with him being there, I think that it will be. I mean, I think they'll be a lot more competitive than if they're playing with Minshew, and the concerns about the offensive line will kind of be mitigated by more of a mobile quarterback, as we said before. I just think with Aaron Donald and this defensive front still being pretty great, um, at least according to my knowledge, and then with Stafford being able to move around the field, I don't think that. I mean, oh, sorry, with these rookie wide receivers, um, I just think the Rams will be able to get it done. Um, I do want to see Anthony Richardson succeed. Like obviously, you want to see these players who are extremely mobile, extremely athletic, and just great prospects live up to their greatest potential. I just don't think this is the week that he really is able to show that.
Yeah, I mean I did say the lost Ramsey, but the Rams still have an underrated defense. But I don't know. I'm kind of believing in this Colts team right now. I think they're getting finding something down there, so I think they'll get it done.
Mhm. All right, that leads us to Baltimore at Cleveland. Important game for Cleveland. This is coming off of Deshaun Watson's awful showings in the first 2 weeks. Now, I will kind of spare him criticism for his play in the first week. No one really looked good in that game. Part of that was because of Burrow's calf and the conditions also weren't very permitting. So you get a little bit of a grace period for that. But the Pittsburgh game was pretty awful, and that was like alarm bells in the Browns community for that game because that game, in my opinion, solely falls at the feet of Watson. You had, I think it was something like the Steelers like I was it they never entered the red zone or something like that, or they never got points in the red zone or something like that during that game, and those touchdowns really only came from or the lion's share of points came from offensive turnovers, and everything else was just mitigated by the defense. Um, so it was good at least to see some improvement in his capacity to play it, and it kind of tempered my put in DTR calls uh in week 3 because granted it's against the Titans, but at least the Amari Cooper connection is there. We have receivers who can be competent, and then also barring a couple plays, there was some sort of getting it together. And that connection that he talked about, how it will come sooner or later, which was a concerning comment for me during that week. It seemed that they're working to create this offense, like and increase their capacity. Um, that brings us to this week against Baltimore. Um, I would say these teams are pretty even in terms of their power rankings right now. Uh, I mean, you do have Kyle Hamilton on the Ravens, but it's not like this defense is particularly strong. Um, I mean, Kyle Hamilton is a good playmaker in of itself, but it's like with the dominance shown by this Schwartz defense on the Browns, I don't think that you can put them in the same conversation. I just think that now that they're going to be at Cleveland, coming off a big win, I think that the Browns do edge this one out. I think that they can beat the Ravens. Now, Lamar, it's hard to bet against the Ravens when you do have Lamar playing at his best. but I do think that we're able to take care of him. We do have pretty mobile edge rushers in Zadarius Smith and Miles Garrett, and then our DTs are also looking amazing. So I think that they're just able to beat out um, the offensive line for the Ravens and also contain Lamar. But I could be completely wrong. Lamar just has a way of doing these things. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised how well the Browns played on Sunday. I thought they'd start slow with Nick Chubb. I mean, because Nick Chubb, arguably the best running back in the NFL. Uh, that is a huge loss for them. And Deshaun Watson had a great bounce back game. He threw for multiple touchdowns. He was accurate most of the game, and he surprised me. And Ravens, as I mentioned before, were injured last week. I'm not sure how injured they're going to be this week. And just solely that the Browns looked a lot more impressive last week than I thought, and Ravens and their injury prone. I got the Browns winning this one because I don't know who's going to play for the Ravens, but someone's always hurt on that team. Their main goal just needs to be to keep Lamar healthy. They'll be in good shape if they do that. But yeah, even with Lamar playing, I think the Browns. I'm starting to buy into the hype a little bit. Wolves. I need to see more consistent and like game after game after game for Deshaun for me to start really buying into them. But they're off to a great start this season.
Yeah, it's just I almost like if I could, I would just like to turn off the offense and watch the defense because they make me happy and the offense does not. So
Yeah,
that's really
you
all I have to
can't.
say about that.
They looked well last week. I'll give them that. So they just got to
Yeah.
keep these. They got to keep these games going. So
Yeah.
you can't be satisfied with one because it's week, like I said, it's week 3, and Browns have had good starts in the past, and we've seen how they've done. So still you still need to see some consistency there.
We did hold Derrick Henry to 20 yards though.
Yeah,
That is one thing I will say.
yeah, that's the reason I had the Titans last week. I was like, they got Derrick Henry. You guys don't really have a running back, and that was you got it done. You stopped the beast. So
Yeah.
that kind of let's go into the next game. It's battle of the 0-3 versus Vikings and Panthers. I think this pick is kind of obvious with an 0-3 team that really should not be 0-3 in the Vikings. They just can't win a game right now. This is like the Bengals would be in the same situation if they lost on Monday night than the Vikings. Like Kirk has looked good. He said he's gonna play better and all this, but I think he's played up to Kirk's standard and how he should have played. I think this it's just the turnovers are hurting him, man. They really are. And because against the Chargers, I called them the Nebraska, and they tried every way to lose that game. Well, like a 4th and 1 on their own 25 with 2 minutes and didn't get it. And then I think I don't remember who Kirk threw it to, and it got just batted up in the air and picked off. Like those are just plays that cannot happen in the clutch. There's multiple times where like Kirk his decision making wasn't the greatest and he was trying to like thread the needle and it'd get tipped and bounce all over the place. But they've seen to fix these turnovers, get this Madison involved, and can obviously get Jay Jettis in that receiving core. Because we all know how good they are, but I just trust them a lot more than I trust the Panthers. And I don't know if Bryce Young will play, so just based on that, I got Vikings. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Vikings as well. It is kind of the this is kind of like the nightmare season for or I guess not. It's not like it's a nightmare, but it's just like this is the season where the chickens come home to roost for the Vikings because last season they had like a negative point differential like over the course of their season. Um, and it's just like this is kind of and they were kind of seen as posers even though they won all those games that they did at least by a lot of the members of the NFL community. They're like they really can't they really can't compete other than that massive comeback, um, which was led by Kirk. Um, I think that they do find a way to beat the Panthers. Like I said, the passing offense for the Panthers does look pretty abysmal. Um, and if Anthony Dalton does sorry, not Anthony, if Andy Dalton does play, um, it will take some of the heat off of Bryce Young. So I think that they do play Andy. Um, but I just think that the Vikings are able to edge this one out. Um, especially with all the receiving talent that they have. I like the way that Jordan Addison looks. And then obviously you have Justin Jefferson who can beat teams on his own basically. So I think this is just a get back week, and I think that the Vikings are able to take it back. I think I will say one thing I will say about Cam Akers coming to the Vikings. I don't think it will be particularly impactful. I think this is Cam Akers will kind of be relegated to like a first and second like running back rate, and then Madison will come in for the third or something like that. I just don't think. Well, and not like that's like a bad thing per se, but it's just I don't trust Cam Akers, and I don't think that the head coaching staff does in Minnesota either. I think they just want him as an insurance option for Alexander Madison because he hasn't looked amazing over the course of these couple weeks. But I don't think it's like going to be this like electrifying presence in the offense.
I mean, he has the potential, so just he hasn't really lived up to it.
Yeah.
I mean that could be some with LA or not. We'll see. Vikings. I kind of think he'll do well in Minnesota. I mean, only time will tell.
Okay, yeah. So starting with the Bengals and Titans again, I just think that um I mean I think Burrow does play. I don't think anything unlike barring some crazy like setback during I think if Burrow does ever start to see flare-ups in the calf injury, I think it will be during a game, unfortunately. Um, but I don't think the Titans are in a position to make that much of a problem per se. So I think people will start to see like this will be a game where I think the Bengals really do show that they are still the Bengals. And they'll win. It just would not rid me of my concerns for this issue with Burrow flaring back up again. But I do think you guys have a good chance of winning this one out. I think Mixon is going to be important in this offense. And I think that he'll be able to make his impact known during this game. And then T Higgins and Chase, they'll obviously still be great. I mean, the the Titans defense is showing to be a little bit stronger than the offense, especially with Ryan Tannehill not being who he once was, which was slightly above average, but now he is definitely falling to like the that we should consider putting in some of our rookies here soon because of the showing that he's been putting out. But yeah, to make a long idea short, Bengals win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Bengals have beaten Tennessee the last 2 years, and I mean, it just felt like they've had their number. So I think Joe Burrow, his injury will hurt, like, it won't be as painful. He'll get better throughout the week. I don't know if he'll practice the first couple days. I assumed he was since we didn't really hear anything. But yeah, I think the Bengals are starting to they started off well in again on Monday night against LA, and I think they continue to build off that and get a dub in Tennessee.
Mhm.
Moving on to Buccaneers Saints. Saints, Derek Carr's shoulder injury. I mean, I don't I didn't really look into how severe it is.
They're calling it
But
week to week.
yeah, so I don't I don't think he'll play this game. I think it's too soon. I mean, so and they did not look well when he was not on the field, so and other than on Monday night, the Buccaneers have looked decent enough. Baker's looked game manager type, like I said in the first episode, and I think Baker and the Bucks get it done. I mean, because they still got weapons on that offense, and their defense is very underrated in Tampa. So I think Bucks do this convincingly against the Saints.
Yeah, I also think, especially after the showing that Jameis put up last week, um, I just don't think that they're going to be able to compete against this Bucks defense. And really the offense is looking decent as well. Like with Baker, I mean, obviously when you go against the Eagles, you're not going to be on your best day. Um, but I think Baker is performing better than expected, especially with some of the drama coming out of training camp. With his competition with Kyle Trask, you would hope that if you're acquiring Baker, that he would um, beat out a person with the lack of experience that Trask has. Um, but he's really performed, and as a Browns fan who got really upset with Baker and just kind of his demeanor during his time in Cleveland, I'm happy to see him in a spot where he's doing okay. Um, I do think that they win this rather convincingly. I think the connection that Baker does have with Mike Evans isn't something to write off. So I'm really happy that he's been able to make that connection, and it's not. If he is in Tampa long term, I hope that Mike Evans is there to support him, because if he doesn't have the if he doesn't have a talented wide receiver room around him, I really can see that going south fast. Um, but I think that despite a decent Saints defense up against an offense which we really didn't anticipate would be putting on much of a show prior to the season, I think that the Buccaneers do come out and win this one. Um, a little bit about Derek Carr, though. I am happy that he's doing pretty all right. I mean, I thought this would be going a lot worse after his departure from Vegas, because I mean that it wasn't like it was like there was like this huge blowout or anything, but it wasn't friendly, I would say. So I was anticipating that he would not be at his best, but he's showing that he can still play and he can still be competitive and still be an above average, more I guess like borderline average quarterback.
Yeah.
Um, that leads us to Dolphins Bills, which is probably going to be one of our most exciting games of the week. I do think though this is where the Dolphins kind of are kind of put, not that they're put in their place like they're going to be like humbled or anything like that, because I wouldn't consider themselves to be an overly prideful team or anything of the sort. I just think that the Bills do find a way to get it together. The defense prior to the season was seen to be like this really dominant option within the NFL, and with the loss of Jalen Ramsey, it is like that did take some of the wind out of their sails. I guess you would say, and they haven't looked amazing. Um, I mean, you haven't really been against a whole bunch of incredibly dominant offensive players. But I think the Bills just find a way to beat him out. I think Josh Allen probably does have a stupid turnover, but that's okay. I think they find a way to handle it.
I actually think the opposite with Dolphins Bills. I think this offense is very good with Tua, and he looked like he hasn't missed a beat since last year, even with all his concussions and stuff. I think this is a shootout type game, kind of like how Chargers Dolphins was week one, and uh, yeah, I think the Dolphins they win just because. I mean, they've looked better. I mean, Bills had a hiccup week one. They've bounced back with two dominant wins. But I just think Dolphins find a way to get it done. I'm believing in them right now. So I mean, if you put up 70 points against any NFL team, no matter what, you're a good offense. Like you're a high tier offense. So I think just for that reason alone, you got to pick Dolphins in that one. Going into the game of the week, everyone's talking about it. Bears Broncos, baby. Oh, probably the two worst performing teams going into week four. And there may not be a winner in this one. This has a high prob. This could be 0-0. I mean, like I don't know with these two teams. I think the Broncos win just because I think they got more talent, but I'm not really sure anymore. This could I don't even know what to do with this game. It might as well not even be played. They both should just be given a loss so they can both be 0-16. That's how they played. I'm probably overreacting, but like it's just It's just these teams have looked. These are definitely they've looked the two worst 3 weeks in, and I mean this is one. This is a chance for them to get back on the right foot.
Yeah, in Columbus we have a rivalry for the Columbus Crew versus FC Cincinnati. It's called Hell is Real. And that should be the title of this game is Hell is Real and we are in it while we are watching this game. Um, Broncos versus Bears is going to be an awful game. It actually may not be awful. We may be able to see a tie or something like that, which is actually a very intriguing thing to see in the NFL. Um, and I don't even want to pick anybody in this. Like it's just sad to think about either side of the ball, and in either side of the team, to be honest, because on one hand you think about, oh, there was kind of like a better showing here. Um, you find it, you find that the on like you find a hole on the other end, or you find another way to criticize the team that you were just talking up. I do think the Broncos find a way to beat it out. Like, I mean, I'm thinking that Justin Fields against like a pretty awful defense, or a defense that really has had their hearts ripped out and crushed in front of them, would at least be able to show like some sort of a flash. And I think he will. Like I think he will be able to have like an okay performance. But then again, they have a coaching staff who like Eberflus is not the greatest coach in the world, and then you also have a defensive coordinator who resigned amid this very horrifying circumstance. Um, so I think that the Broncos with Sean Payne, who just has it a little bit more under control, I think, with Russell Wilson, who he is not who he was before, but at least they've structured an offense that allows him to be like to play in a way that's not like offensively bad. And when I say offensively bad, I mean like offending bad. Um, I think that the Broncos do find a way to win.
Yeah,
Eagles Commanders is going to stink for the Commanders because last week against the Bills, you came across you actually had to face a defense that had their act together, and they scored was it 0 points against, was it 0 or 3 points um
I it may
against,
have been three. I think it was three.
they scored 3 points to 30 to the Bills 37. That was one of the bigger blowouts. I think that it's not going to be a great week for the Bills again. I think that the
Alright,
Eagles, this will just be,
Commanders.
sorry, yeah, the Commanders. This will just be another trial week for the Eagles offense, and I hope that the Eagles do get it together because I enjoy seeing Jalen. What the heck? I enjoy
Hurts.
seeing Hurts play at a high level just because he is that electrifying type of player. Um, but I just feel like if you're Sam Howell, you're gonna really hate your life in this particular. It is nice seeing DeAndre Swift find another home, which is appreciated. And I hope that he continues to show that he's patient and that he can wait for a hole to open. And I think that he will be able to punish a pretty competent Commanders defense,
Yeah,
despite
I
last
mean,
week's.
this is the real Swift Kelsey duo here in Philadelphia. So, I mean, and there's not really much more to say. Commanders got mollywopped last week by the Bills. I think it happens again to a Eagles team that is probably better than the Bills, and they got definitely have a better defense. But I think it may not be the Eagles may win like 27-3 or something like that, but it'll probably be just as dominant. Um, yeah, I don't see the Commanders winning this game. Just I mean their performance last week was really eye-opening.
If you did lose this game as the Eagles, that would be very concerning
Yes.
because it's probably going to be because of an offensive struggle.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah.
All right, moving into next game, Steelers versus Texans. Steelers, they have a win over the Browns that may hold up well, but like Deshaun didn't play well. Played the Raiders, and the Raiders kicked a field goal for literally no reason when they could have tried to tie the game. I don't know what to think of them yet, but and I mean the Texans, they bounced back against Jacksonville, but I know the Steelers have a great defense. That's what I do know based on this. So I'm picking the Steelers. I think they'll hold CJ Stroud a little bit better. He may be able to. This may be the game where he gets his first interception because the Steelers just really have a great defense. They got pieces everywhere. So I think the Steelers win a like with their defense wins this game.
Yeah, I think that I'm not gonna say that CJ Stroud throws an interception and it's not under duress. I think this whole game he'll be dealing with some sort of pressure. TJ Watt is looking like the dog that he is, unfortunately, as much as I hate the Steelers. Um, they're the truth right now, their defenses at least. Granted, they haven't played against these amazing offenses yet. Um, other than the Niners, um, they haven't really been able to show they haven't really been able to show like how they hold up against these 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 great people um on the offensive side of the ball. But I think that they do find a way to win this one out. I think that if CJ Stroud does throw an interception, it's going to be because of that pressure. Um and no one can really hold up against uh really no one can really hold up against the power that the Steelers have. And if they do find a way to make this a winning season under Mike Tomlin again, it will be because of that. It will be because of that defense. Because Pickett is not living up to the hype in any frame of mind. He, it's really no one is like. I mean, except for T.J. Warren, who you weren't expecting to be great when you have Najee Harris still active. I mean, he is really taking the backslide. Um, I mean, Pickens has a couple of good catches over the season, and then also, and then you have Deontay out. So this offense is really kind of really has a whole bunch of holes in it. I think that this will be a close game, though. I just think that the defense for the Steelers does find a way to win. Okay, that leads us to Raiders versus Chargers. And is it can we say that these are two of the worst coached teams in the NFL?
Probably. They
I
got
mean,
a lot of talent. It's
yeah,
just like
the Chargers should have lost that game last week. And it happened nearly like nearly in the same week that um happened against the Browns last season because and if we had a competent kicker by that point, we would have won that game because Staley always finds it admirable to go for it on 4th and 1 when you're like within 2 feet of your end zone and
not get it.
2 feet,
He
yeah, and
never
not
gets
get
it.
it. So he never gets it. So the Vikings really should have won that game. Um, but I think the Chargers do find a way to win it out. Um, I've I have desperately been calling for Justin Herbert to be released from his chains, and I hope that he's able to make a connection with Keenan Allen despite Mike Williams being out. Um, I just don't think the Raiders have the gas in the tank in order to beat them. Uh, Jimmy G was making really bad decisions in the Steelers game. Granted, he was going against a really defiant and strong Steelers defense. I just don't think the play calling is right. I think that he's trying to force too many things, and a couple of the interceptions, or that last interception, then of course you're going to just try and throw it because they had close to zero time left, but it's just not a great looking team right now, and they kind of reek of just trying to scrape by. And I think the Chargers do have the capacity to put something together, even with Mike Williams out.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders' their only win is against the Broncos, and we've already talked about how bad they've looked, and it was only a 1 point win. So I'm not really sure if they're good or bad yet. I mean, they haven't looked the greatest, but the Chargers, yeah, I agree. They 100% should have lost that game, and I still believe they're another Nebraska NFL, but uh, I think they still win this one. If the Chargers would be the team to lose this game, though, they would. I mean, yeah, they'll get on another 4th and 1, and they'll just not get it. But yeah, I think the Chargers do end up prevailing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they blow it. That's just based off experience. Now, going into this next game, it's kind of interesting. It's 49ers. We've looked real dominant. Um, and then the Cardinals, who talent-wise should not be playing these games this competitive, but they are. I think they're a lot better coach team under the new uh head coach, Cliff Berry, but I think the 49ers still take care of business fairly well. I think they win 15 plus points just because I think this is the team not to get caught in the Cardinals traps, and I think the 49ers win this game pretty convincingly.
Yeah, there's not much to say other than the 49ers are a whole lot better than the Cardinals. I mean, I think that they'll be able to get maybe they'll be able to expose a couple, be able to take advantage of a couple weaknesses that the Niners have, but there just aren't that many weaknesses that like I just don't think it's going to be within the range of the Cardinals to take a stab at them. I wouldn't say this is going to be like a crazy blowout per se. Like you're not going to see another
No, not
70
at all.
point game for a super long time, but this is going to be a game where the 49ers are running away with the lead for quite a long time, if not for the entire game. So don't overthink it. I'm picking the Niners. That also leads me to Patriots Cowboys. I think that the Cowboys, after some of the criticism that they took this week, especially like Dak that he took, and I think he's really determined to earn some of the respect back that he feels like he had lost over the past couple seasons because I mean it's been warranted. Like the decision making has been bad. He hasn't been the dominant passer that I mean Cowboys fans are expecting him to be. Um, and he's going up against a pretty decent Patriots defense, especially with Christian Gonzalez uh really showing up and adding to the cornerback or like the DB room. Um, I think he's not getting the hype that he deserves per se just yet. But I think that this will be a close game. I think that CeeDee Lamb does not have the game that he would have against a softer defense. But I think the Cowboys do find a way to win it out. Um, the running game is going to be really hard against this defense with Micah Parsons. I think Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott are both going to have a difficult time getting the ball moving on the ground, and they're going to be forced to throw it, which Mac Jones, as we know, is by no means uh, the best pocket passer in the world. He has his struggles, and I think those struggles are going to be exposed by the Cowboys this week. And I think that they're just going to be able to take advantage of it in a get back week.
Yeah, I have the Patriots won this one. I don't I don't know what happened to the Cowboys last week, and I think I think the Patriots can get done because they've played three like real competitive games, and they won one of them. They played the Eagles real well, and they played the Dolphins real well, and we've seen how dominant they have been. So I think the Patriots kind of shocked the Cowboys again, maybe, and maybe they're still like over the fact that their star corner is hurt and out for the year. I think the Patriots just found a way to get done, just flat out that. Like, 'cause I mean, they got a lot of ex-Cowboys on that team with Ezekiel and Will Grier. I don't think Mac Jones maybe has the greatest game. I think he just does enough. I definitely think that if the Patriots do win, it will be like last second or something. It's not like they'll control the game from beginning to end. They'll have to face some adversity, and I think the Patriots as a team as a whole with their defense has been more impressive, so I think the Patriots get it done. Now that is moving us into our Sunday night football game and Chiefs Jets. This may look a lot like the Bears game with Zach Wilson. He hasn't looked the greatest. I don't know if it's just he's underdeveloped or the environment he's in, because that locker room is falling apart as we speak. And I'm not really sure what their headspace is going to be in. So I think the Chiefs are going to rout the Jets. And I don't think there needs much. There's really more to say about that.
It does kind of stink, doesn't it? Like, because we saw from clips of Hard Knocks of this team that like had really just built a great morale after the pain that they had gone through under Wilson. And bringing Rodgers in almost like allows for Zach Wilson to just like kind of take a back seat, grow, and develop a relationship with the team that is that will sustain them once Aaron Rodgers would leave,
Yeah.
unless he were to be traded away. Like at that point, you have a better fleshed out relationship with the team, and ideally he would be better by that point. So like no one's going to criticize Aaron Rodgers on that team. He's a veteran. They brought him in they were waiting so long for him, and all these receivers in particular really wanted him, and he developed a good relationship with the defense as well. So it's just like no one would criticize him. He would have the opportunity to sit back, get better, develop relationships, and then when Aaron Rodgers left or he was traded away, Zach Wilson will be better, and he wouldn't have to face as much the criticism that he's facing right now. But he is, and he's catching flack, and Robert Saleh has to defend him just to keep the team together. But that's the one thing that's tearing the team apart. They don't have really any other options. They brought in like Simeon, but that's not going to be any better. That will not provide you with the facilities to make a run in a way that will keep you in contention for when Aaron Rodgers comes back. And it's just like a big bummer for football watchers because we don't get to see what this team could have been. At least right now we don't. And that really stinks because I wanted there to be a storyline here. The only storyline we have right now for the Jets is that they suck.
Yeah.
And it's just really depressing
They're
for everyone
missing
that's
their
around it.
QB.
The vibes are off, and they're playing against a team who are basically they have become not that they're like America's team that the Cowboys have been, but they have become the face of the NFL with the
Everyone,
Chiefs.
we can put it this way, everyone has an eye on them.
Yeah, everyone has an eye on them, and they can't say anything bad about them. The only thing that I see going bad for the Chiefs in this game is that their offensive struggles are a little bit more pronounced, and like Sauce finds a way to, in their cornerback room finds a way to make this a little bit more difficult on them. And I think that will happen. Like I think that there will be some mistakes that are made, but I don't think by any means that will be enough to sway the game towards the Jets' favor. And I think the Chiefs do handily win this game. I think this is just where they remind everyone, hey, did you remember that Bears game that happened where we had like the pretty girl from the other school who's dating one of the guys who goes here, like come in and be like, oh my gosh, she's actually real. Yeah, let's just run that back and do it again against a team. And instead of kind of capturing media attention this time, let's just show that we're actually really, really good, a really, really good football team as well. So that leads us to Seahawks versus Giants. Um, I really do think that this will be a pretty interesting and compelling game. Um, I think both of these teams have kind of taken a bit of a step back. The Seahawks, I mean, you're at 2-1, so like you're not bad by any means, but it's like I was really hoping that they would get Jackson Smith-Njigba involved right now and like right from the jump, but he hasn't been able to. I think that eventually down the line he definitely will because people are going to realize the talent that he is. But he's just in a crowded receiver room, so you can't really blame him. This is kind of what we were expecting. Like maybe he'll get a little bit of time to develop, and then or he plays slot, so maybe that will allow for Lockett and DK to go more of a like do more go routes and kind of challenge the field vertically. Um, I do think that the Giants offense is going to continue to struggle, and with Saquon likely out, I don't think Matt Breida is going to be enough to make a Giants win happen. And I think Daniel Jones may have his confidence shaken going against that pretty formidable 49ers defense. I don't know if you saw like the video of him when he was like taking over offensively. He like just stood there and he was like he looked shell shocked. So he looked like you got into class and you forgot that you had homework or something like that. Um, so I think that is going to continue, unfortunately, for Brian Daboll. I think the Seahawks win this one out.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks win this game. Uh, I said it. I blasted on the Giants after the Cardinals, and I just think the Seahawks win. I mean, I don't know what to say. Gino, I saw a video of Gino. I don't know if you saw it. With Jason looked a little pissed on the bench, and he was like, "Hey, I know you want the ball, but I still need your mind here. Like, we all still need you on this team. Like, he's being a good captain, a good leader of this offense, and I think, er, I I don't think it's necessarily becoming a problem, but I just think is the better QB, that they have the better offense, they have the better team, and I think they win this game probably about like 10-14. I think the Seahawks win. I don't Giants need to do a lot better. So I think the Seahawks are gonna win this one.
Yeah, they do need to do a bit of soul searching. One thing that is a nice development, um, is that Jamal Adams will be coming back for the Seahawks. So after a pretty bad injury, it'll be good to another key component of this defense will be back challenging a less than stellar Daniel Jones. I mean, after the contract that he received, you would really hope that he'd be performing at a higher level. Um, and with Jamal Adams coming back, it's like not going to be this is not a game where he's put a target on. It's like, this is my get back game. I think that he's going to continue to struggle, and Giants fans are going to start getting real pissed off about that contract that they gave him and are neglecting to give Saquon Barkley. Um,
That was a
yeah,
mistake. I think
yeah,
paying him all that money.
yeah. All right. Well, that's all for us today. Um, let us know if you think that we're stupid and we should stop talking about football because we suck. Joking. But thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this week goes well for you and your team. And yeah, that's all I have. Brain, you have anything?
Yeah, thanks for watching, staying to the end. And yeah, we'll see you next week, next Thursday. All right,
Goodbye.
peace.